Chung, encouraged, took a few more steps, climbed onto his lap, pulled a peanut from her bag, ate one herself, and then offered one to Theo Chung. "You don't eat, I'll eat." Before Theo Chung could finish his sentence, another peanut was stuffed into his mouth. "I'm not eating." Another peanut was pushed in. Oh well. When Vera Mao knocked and entered, she happened to see her usually cold chief holding a fluffy little white thing, typing on the computer while munching on peanuts. She stood at the door, slightly hesitant about whether to enter. Theo Chung also felt a bit awkward. To maintain his image, he had to keep a straight face. "What's the matter?" "Chief Chung, the city's publicity department is here to film a legal awareness promotion. Do you want to go greet them?" Theo Chung withdrew his gaze and continued looking at the screen. "I'm not going anywhere. You can talk to them." Vera Mao knew Theo Chung disliked socializing, nodded, and continued. "Then I'll take Xiaodong outside. Let her be on camera for a bit. Who knows, someone might recognize her." Theo Chung immediately lifted Don Chung off his lap, holding her with both hands and handing her to Vera Mao. "Take her quickly." Vera Mao smiled as she took her, cradling the girl. "Our Xiaodong is so adorable. Let's go play, okay?" Theo Chung looked at Vera Mao, her eyes sparkling with joy, and curiously asked, "Is she really that adorable? You've never raised a child. You don't know how wonderful daughters are. They're fragrant and soft, and they're like the little warm blankets of their parents. I used to want to have a daughter, but unfortunately, I ended up with a son." Theo Chung looked at Vera Mao, falling silent for a moment. Vera Mao suddenly realized that what she had just said seemed inappropriate in front of Theo Chung. Theo Chung maintained a calm expression, handing the evidence bag on the table to Vera Mao. "These are the shoes of the girl. Tell Harrison Vance to investigate and see if we can find the buyer. Prepare both plans. In case the DNA comparison yields no results, we still have a lead." Vera Mao took the bag containing the tiger head shoes, glanced inside a few times, and was secretly astonished. What kind of family did this child come from that even her everyday shoes were so exquisite and luxurious? The city's publicity department was conducting legal awareness promotions and had recently organized a task force to visit various police stations in the area, introducing the situations of the stations to the public through live broadcasts. The main gate of the Hoa and police station appeared in the frame, and as the camera moved inside, the officers were busy working in an orderly manner. The comment section of the live broadcast was very quiet, with only a few comments appearing occasionally. Don Chung argued fiercely, "I'm not mistaken. He is my dad." At that moment, Theo Chung recalled the message from Verania, mentioning that a child had come to the police station looking for him, insisting she was his daughter, and even sent a photo. He hadn't had the chance to open the photo yet, so he couldn't immediately connect the crying child in front of him with the one at the police station. He pulled out his phone and called Verania. Verania was running around with Harrison Vance, searching everywhere for the little girl. Harrison Vance even poked his head down a storm drain to look for her. Verania was at a loss for words. How could she fit down there? She's not a rat. Just then, Verania's phone rang, and upon seeing the number of Chief Chung, she had a bad feeling. She gestured silently to Harrison Vance. "Chief Chung," before answering the call. Before Theo Chung could say anything, Verania heard a bright voice from the other end. "You are my dad." Verania. After waiting at the entrance of the station for a while, Verania and Harrison Vance saw a tall, slender figure walking out, moving quickly and decisively. None other than their Chief Chung. However, today Chief Chung had an additional accessory in his hand. The accessory, upon seeing the two, immediately beamed. "There's Dad." The accessory had found her dad on her own, looking very proud. Chief Chung's face darkened. Before he could speak, Harrison Vance hurriedly explained, "Chief, we took the little girl for an ADN test, and before we knew it, she ran off." Verania chuckled to ease the tension. "That's right. This girl is as quick as a dog. The moment we let her go, she vanished." Theo Chung remained silent, his expression still dark. Verania tried to lighten the mood. "Luckily, she ran to you, Chief. If she had gotten lost, it would have been even more troublesome, haha." Just when it seemed they were about to get through this, Quinn Luke rushed out of the building, holding 2 half-eaten sausages. Don Chung's eyes lit up, reaching out. "My meat." Verania rolled her eyes and quickly added, "Right, this girl kept asking for sausages, and Harrison Vance bought her 2. Harrison Vance shot Verania a glare. She really was a master at shifting blame. The antics of the two were no match for Theo Chung, but he couldn't be bothered to argue, handing the child over to Verania. "Take her home." Don Chung, still munching on her sausage, panicked when she heard her dad didn't want to acknowledge her anymore, clutching tightly to Theo Chung's neck. Moreover, with a sausage in hand, she was about to get grease all over him. Chief Chung, who had a cleanliness obsession, was afraid the sausage would stain his clothes and quickly said, "All right, come with me." Don Chung happily settled into the back seat of Theo Chung's car, munching on her sausage while kindly asking her dad, "Are you going to eat?" Theo Chung shot her a look. "Eat faster." After Don Chung finished her grilled sausage, Theo Chung tossed the stick into the trash and took a wet wipe from the car to clean her hands. Once done, he drove off. Don Chung, with her big, round, dark eyes, looked around the car and asked, "Is this a new car?" No talking to the driver while in the car. Theo Chung replied. Don Chung immediately fell silent, feeling a bit sleepy but too afraid to sleep, worried that if she did, her dad would disappear, so she used her small hands to prop her eyelids open. Theo Chung drove to the address Verania had sent, arriving at the Little Sun Kindergarten on the Western Coastal Road. Fortunately, this kindergarten operated 24/7. The teachers were initially startled to see Theo Chung in uniform, but after clarifying the situation, they warmly welcomed the father and daughter. Don Chung perked up her ears to listen to their conversation, realizing her dad was about to abandon her again, and she activated her crying skills. Her cries immediately triggered dozens of other children in the kindergarten to cry along, creating such a racket that Theo Chung felt his eardrums might burst. After struggling for over 10 minutes, Theo Chung had no choice but to take her home. He lived in the Fucked-In area, a high-rise apartment complex in the city center. His apartment was on the top floor, with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms, furnished by the developer but looking quite new yet empty, with only a few pieces of furniture. Don Chung stood with her arms crossed behind her back, circling the house, thinking, "This palace is indeed quite simple. My dad must be having a hard time." Theo Chung sat on the sofa, pondering for a moment, then called the barefoot child over. "What's your name?" "Don Chung." "What's your dad's name?" "Theo Chung." "What's your mom's name?" "Lady." "Do you know where we live?" "Ma Thần Cung." Theo Chung waved his hand dismissively. "Go play." Don Chung crossed her arms again and scampered around barefoot. She peeked into the kitchen but found nothing, feeling a bit disappointed, then ran into the bedroom to check and came back asking, "Can I sleep now?" Theo Chung lazily glanced at her. "Not yet. You need to take a bath first." Don Chung tilted her head and said seriously, "I don't want to bathe." Theo Chung looked at her expressionless face, sighed. Things were getting a bit out of control. He didn't understand why he had brought this burden home. It was truly self-inflicted trouble. The burden didn't care about her dad's well-being and said, "I'm hungry now." Not smelling any food in the house made Don Chung a bit anxious, worried that her dad was so poor he couldn't afford to buy food. Theo Chung stared at her for a few seconds, then stood up, went into the bedroom, and slammed the door shut. Don Chung scampered over, pushed the door, but it was locked and wouldn't budge. She pressed her ear against the door, catching a whiff of her dad's scent, so she didn't panic and patiently sat waiting by the door. Theo Chung changed into casual clothes and stepped out, leading Don Chung outside. The two went to a small restaurant at the entrance of the apartment complex and ordered a few home-style dishes. Don Chung focused on eating her rice. Her eating habits were a bit strange. First, she would sniff with her nose. If it was meat, she would use a spoon to eat it, and if it was vegetables, she would push them aside. Theo Chung didn't have the time to correct her picky eating habits. After all, he would only be taking care of her for a few days. However, this was quite strange. Looking at her appearance and clothing, she clearly came from a wealthy family who should have been very attentive to their children. How could it be that half a day had passed without a single phone call to report her missing? That was a bit unusual. After finishing their meal, Theo Chung took Don Chung for a walk to a nearby public bath. He couldn't bathe her himself, so he had to take her to the bathhouse. The public bath offered scrubbing services, and Theo Chung paid to hire a lady to bathe Don Chung. Don't scrub too hard, just lather her up with soap and clean her. Not long ago, there had been an incident where a scrubbing lady at a bathhouse had scraped a customer's skin raw, leading to a fight and the police being called. Theo Chung still remembered that. According to Chung sat with his arms crossed on a wooden chair by the bathroom door, listening to the heart-wrenching cries of Don Chung echoing from inside. He thought to himself that the delicate skin of little Don Chung was surely in for a tough time this round. Just as he was pondering this, the aunt from the women's bathroom rushed out, calling for help. "We need another person in here to help me hold her down. That little one is as strong as an ox and even tries to bite." After all, her body was just that of a 3-year-old child, and no matter how strong Don Chung was, she couldn't compete against the 2 robust ants scrubbing her down. Theo Chung waited outside for less than an hour when Don Chung was brought out by the aunt, all clean and fragrant. Her long, damp hair was tied up in a bun on top of her head, and her cheeks were faintly flushed from the heat, making her look like a freshly kneaded dough ball. After leaving the bathroom, Theo Chung took Don Chung for a stroll around the shops. Spotting a children's clothing store, he grabbed the back of the little girl's collar, pulling her away from her distracted gazing inside. On the right side of the store hung a rack of discounted clothes, with a sign reading, 50% off, clearance sale. Theo Chung randomly picked a set of a t-shirt and shorts from the discounted items, featuring a cartoon avocado on the shirt. At the checkout, he noticed a row of small skirts hanging behind the counter and pointed to a pink one with a white rabbit design. "I'll take that one too." Don Chung showed no interest in the new outfit Theo Chung had chosen. Rather, she didn't like any of the clothes in the store. The clothes she used to wear were all made of shiny fabric, adorned with beautiful embroidery and jewels, far more extravagant than these. After paying, Theo Chung handed the paper bag to Don Chung. "Carry it yourself." The little girl refused, extending her hand towards him. "Carry me. Walk on your own." Theo Chung never indulged children. Don Chung lunged at him, clinging tightly to his pant leg, then wrapping her arms around his sturdy calf, clinging to him like an octopus. As Theo Chung moved forward, the little girl was dragged along. This walking position was quite ridiculous. He had no choice but to pick her up and carry her home. The little girl wrapped her arms around Theo Chung's neck, resting her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes, swaying, and soon fell asleep. Her breathing gradually became heavier, but her arms still instinctively clung tightly to his neck. Theo Chung had carried children before. During a human trafficking case, more than a dozen rescued children were carried back by the officers in his team, traveling thousands of kilometers across provinces. But now, holding Don Chung felt a bit different from carrying those other children. There was a strange warmth in his heart. Once in the elevator, Theo Chung glanced at the surrounding reflections and noticed that the shoulder of his shirt was damp from the little girl's drool. He closed his eyes and sighed. He really wanted to see who the parents of this troublesome child were. To give birth to a child like Don Chung, they must be quite remarkable themselves. Upon arriving home, Theo Chung placed Don Chung on the sofa, loosely draped a blanket over her, and went to take a shower first. While showering, he tossed his clothes into the washing machine along with the little girl's new outfit, washing and then drying them. After showering, Theo Chung put on a black cotton t-shirt and loose-fitting sports pants. With his tall and slender figure, he looked like a cut-out silhouette in the dimly lit room. He dried his still damp short hair with a towel and walked over to the sofa, intending to wake Don Chung to change into her pajamas. On the empty sofa, the blanket was crumpled into a ball and tossed aside. The little girl had mysteriously disappeared. Theo Chung looked around the living room and noticed the bedroom door was open. He usually had the habit of closing the door when he came in and out. Stepping into the bedroom, he found Don Chung lying face down on the bed, her cheek pressed against the blanket, her chubby face squished into a funny shape, arms and legs sprawled out like the character for Big Ba. Her long hair still slightly damp and tousled on the bed, wetting a small corner. Children really are a handful. Theo Chung approached and shook Don Chung awake, dragging the little girl, who was still dazed, into the bathroom, using the hairdryer to dry her hair. This troublesome child was tiny, yet her hair was long and black, taking quite a while to dry. Don Chung closed her eyes, irritably swatting her hands, trying to go back to sleep. Theo Chung grabbed her again, pulling out clothes from the dryer for her to change into. "Can you dress yourself?" The little girl, half asleep, nodded confidently, her round head bobbing up and down, so drowsy that she felt limp like a noodle. Theo Chung was a bit at a loss, but decided to let it go, taking her back to the bedroom to let her sleep, planning to tidy up the bed after she was sent off. As soon as she was laid on the bed, Don Chung, sleepy as a puppy, wriggled a bit under the blanket, and then fell into a deep sleep. Theo Chung returned to the sofa, lay back, and raised his hand to cover his eyes. He had always struggled with insomnia, but today, whether it was due to the troublesome little girl or not, he fell asleep quickly. At 6:30 a.m., Theo Chung woke up on time, maintaining the habit he had from his days at the police academy, waking up at 6:30 to go for a run when there were no assignments. As soon as he woke up, he felt something heavy on his forehead. Sitting up to check, he found Don Chung had somehow fallen asleep on his pillow, resembling a little puppy, lying face down and snoring softly. He rubbed his neck, finding it strange that despite the commotion caused by the little girl sleeping on his pillow, he hadn't woken up at all. With Don Chung in the house, Theo Chung couldn't leave her home alone, so he broke his nearly 10-year running habit. However, he still made a quick trip outside to the small supermarket under the apartment complex to buy a toothbrush, toothpaste, and children's washcloths. By 8 a.m., Theo Chung was sitting at the dining table working on his laptop when he suddenly saw Don Chung sit up abruptly, her messy hair and dazed eyes staring blankly ahead. Before he could call out, she mumbled sleepily, "Gotta pee." Theo Chung put down his laptop and rushed over, picking the little girl up and carrying her to the bathroom. After a night's sleep, the silk outfit on Don Chung had become wrinkled. Theo Chung handed her the clothes he had washed the night before. "Can you change by yourself?" "Of course," Don Chung replied confidently. So, Theo Chung stood outside waiting for a while, and Don Chung emerged wearing the cartoon t-shirt and shorts, the hem of the shorts hanging loosely, barefoot. She looked up proudly at Theo Chung. He remained expressionless as he helped her adjust her shorts. Although she could dress herself, Don Chung didn't know how to use a toothbrush, so Theo Chung had to try to help her brush her teeth, with his irritated voice echoing in the bathroom. "Don't bite the toothbrush. Don't swallow the toothpaste, spit it out." After brushing her teeth, Theo Chung wrung out a warm washcloth to wipe her face. The little girl was a bit fussy. Even when he didn't use much force, she made a fuss. Just as they were about to go out, Theo Chung noticed the shoes the little girl was wearing, a pair of shoes embroidered with tiger heads, carelessly tossed in the shoe rack. This shoe rack had no windows, and the lighting was quite dim, but he could see something on the tiger's shoes that seemed to glow. Theo Chung squatted down and picked up one of the shoes to take a look. The shoe's material was smooth satin, with extremely intricate hand-embroidered patterns, and each little tiger's forehead was adorned with a large gem. This gem was what emitted the light, a kind of violet-blue fluorescence. During the investigation, the knowledge that Theo Chung and his team required was extensive. He immediately recognized that the gem was fluorite, and its luminescence was due to the mineral containing rare earth elements. In modern times, this is not worth much, but in ancient times, with limited information, people often referred to fluorite as night pearl or moon pearl, which were considered very valuable gemstones. In addition to the pearl in the middle of the forehead, each tiger head shoe has a few small strings of pearls hanging down from the cheeks, resembling whiskers. These small tiger head shoes are exquisitely crafted, both in material and workmanship, unlike ordinary shoes. With such skilled craftsmanship, it wouldn't take long to investigate and find out the brand or artisan behind them, and from there, it wouldn't be difficult to trace back to the buyer. Theo Chung found a bag for evidence and put the small tiger head shoes inside. He carried Don Chung, barefoot, downstairs, passing through the shopping district, where he conveniently bought her a pair of plastic sandals to wear temporarily. This morning, the deputy mayor of the Hoa and police station, Vera Mao, had already arrived at the station. As she reached the entrance, her colleague, Vera Nia, also just rode up on her electric scooter. From a distance, Vera Nia greeted, "Sister Mao." Vera Mao smiled at her, standing on the steps waiting for Vera Nia to arrive, and the two entered the station together. "Oh, right. How's the child you found yesterday?" Vera Mao casually asked. A spark of gossip ignited on Vera Nia's face. She leaned closer to Vera Mao and whispered, "That child," as soon as she saw Chief Theo, called him Dad, and insisted on clinging to him, refusing to get down. In the end, Chief Theo took her home. Vera Mao furrowed her delicate brows. "What a mess. I'm serious." Today, Vera Nia had eyeliner on, making her eyes particularly bright. "That child has the surname Chung. just like Chief Theo. She's also very cute, dressed quite elegantly, like a little princess. You can tell she couldn't possibly be abandoned. Both Harrison Vance and I guessed, could she be Chief Theo's daughter? Maybe there's some backstory. Don't talk nonsense. Vera Nia wanted to gossip a bit more, but was stopped by Vera Mao's gaze. Shooing Vera Nia away, Vera Mao didn't pay attention to what she said. The matter of Theo Chung in Beijing was known only to Vera Mao. Regarding that incident in Beijing, it was impossible for Theo Chung to have a daughter. Today was truly overwhelming, and Vera Mao turned her head, forgetting about the conversation. It wasn't until she saw Theo Chung carrying a child into her office that she was momentarily stunned. Where did the child come from? Theo Chung set the girl down on the floor. Lost child. Do you know how to braid hair? Braid her hair. Do you know how to braid hair? Braid her hair. Vera Mao looked at the girl in front of her, wearing a wrinkled green round-neck t-shirt, with plastic sandals that didn't fit, and her hair was a messy style, as if it had just been blown up by fireworks. No, Vera Nia said the child was dressed very elegantly, like a little princess. How could Theo Chung, after taking care of her for one night, turn her from a princess into a refugee like this? Vera Mao had a 5-year-old son, so she was naturally better at taking care of children than Theo Chung by 100 times. She told Theo Chung to go outside first, and then locked the office door. First, she took off the girl's shirt and discovered that the pants were worn backward, so she put them back on correctly. Using a steam iron, she smoothed out the t-shirt and shorts before dressing the girl in them. Vera Mao's hair was short, and she had no hair ties for the girl, so she decided to take her to find Vera Nia. At this time, there were still about 10 minutes until official working hours, and Vera Nia was hiding behind her desk eating breakfast. Yesterday, she was still a little princess in elegant attire, and today she was dressed so simply. Fortunately, her beauty made up for it. Otherwise, she would look no different from the kids playing on the slide downstairs. Vera Mao briefly explained, and Vera Nia rummaged through her drawer for a comb and hair ties. She was very skillful, dividing the girl's hair into 2 sections, tying them into 2 cute round buns, and then found a pink bow hairpin to clip onto one of the buns. This girl has really nice hair. Vera Mao couldn't help but exclaim as she watched from the side. Vera Nia sighed dramatically. She has more hair than I do. It's so unfair. After styling her hair, the girl looked much more presentable. Vera Nia then pulled out a small, cute fabric bag that came with a yogurt purchase, adjusted the strap, put it on the girl, and stuffed a handful of flavored peanuts into the bag. Once she was all dressed up, Don Chung donned the small bag, slipped on the flat plastic sandals, and followed the scent to her father's office. She pushed the door open, and Theo Chung looked up from his computer screen, his tone slightly impatient. What do you want now? Don Chung reached up to touch the bow on her head. Look, Dad. Yeah, that's nice, pretty. Don Chung, encouraged, took a few more steps, climbed onto his lap, pulled a peanut from her bag, ate one herself, and then offered one to Theo Chung. You don't eat, I'll eat. Before Theo Chung could finish his sentence, another peanut was stuffed into his mouth. I'm not eating. Another peanut was pushed in. Oh well. When Vera Mao knocked and entered, she happened to see her usually cold chief holding a fluffy little white thing, typing on the computer while munching on peanuts. She stood at the door, slightly hesitant about whether to enter. Theo Chung also felt a bit awkward. To maintain his image, he had to keep a straight face. What's the matter? Chief Chung, the city's publicity department, is here to film a legal awareness promotion. Do you want to go greet them? Theo Chung withdrew his gaze and continued looking at the screen. I'm not going anywhere. You can talk to them. Vera Mao knew Theo Chung disliked socializing, nodded, and continued. Then I'll take Xiaodong outside. Let her be on camera for a bit. Who knows? Someone might recognize her. Theo Chung immediately lifted Don Chung off his lap, holding her with both hands and handing her to Vera Mao. Take her quickly. Vera Mao smiled as she took her, cradling the girl. Our Xiaodong is so adorable. Let's go play, okay? Theo Chung looked at Vera Mao, her eyes sparkling with joy, and curiously asked, Is she really that adorable? You've never raised a child. You don't know how wonderful daughters are. They're fragrant and soft, and they're like the little warm blankets of their parents. I used to want to have a daughter, but unfortunately, I ended up with a son. Theo Chung looked at Vera Mao, falling silent for a moment. Vera Mao suddenly realized that what she had just said seemed inappropriate in front of Theo Chung. Theo Chung maintained a calm expression, handing the evidence bag on the table to Vera Mao. These are the shoes of the girl. Tell Harrison Vance to investigate and see if we can find the buyer. Prepare both plans. In case the DNA comparison yields no results, we still have a lead. Vera Mao took the bag containing the tiger head shoes, glanced inside a few times, and was secretly astonished. What kind of family did this child come from that even her everyday shoes were so exquisite and luxurious? The city's publicity department was conducting legal awareness promotions and had recently organized a task force to visit various police stations in the area, introducing the situations of the stations to the public through live broadcasts. The main gate of the Hoa and police station appeared in the frame, and as the camera moved inside, the officers were busy working in an orderly manner. The comment section of the live broadcast was very quiet, with only a few comments appearing occasionally.